Hey, hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Mila, you're at my book nook, and today I have my quarter two reading wrap up. So for those that don't know, if you're new here, instead of doing monthly wrap ups because I don't read consistently enough in every month, my reading very much varies throughout the year. Like I'll read more during the specific set of months because maybe I'm doing a reading challenge, maybe I just like really free and kind of have nothing to do but reading, I guess. Or, like I'm traveling a lot or something like that or whatever, or I get really into like ebooks or really into audiobooks or something. And so I'm consistently reading, so that means that my reading number goes up, but sometimes I'm just reading like 3 books in the month, and they're really spread out, which is unfortunately what happened in June. So yeah, I will have my quarter one reading wrap up linked down below if you want to watch it. I also have my quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4 for last year. I will have those linked in case you want to understand more of how I structure these videos. So basically, I also have an Instagram version of this if you want to check that out. I believe it will be up by the time I post this video. I'm a little behind, so I might have to restructure when some videos are published and stuff, but that's besides the point. And so if you want to, kind of follow along, I'll have the Instagram post linked as well and all that fun stuff. And if you're not new here, welcome back. So basically, I'm just going to go off. I make the Instagram post before I do this video. So, and a lot of these, like this information is based on how I categorize it, and it's based on sort of specifically Storygraph and also my own classification, so to speak. So, for example, and some of the, I guess, definitions might change slightly. So, for example, for Unread Archives, which is a vlog series that I started last year to catch up on my reading goal, but now has turned more into just actively reading books off my shelf, I might count only the books that are on my shelf that I read, or I might count all the books that I did in the various Unread Archives sort of vlogs for that quarterly period. I'll explain a little later on. But yeah, so this is specifically for only the books for April, May, and June. So this does not count the books for January, February, March. I have gone beyond my reading goal. So as far as reading goals go, I am 128% through, meaning I've read 32 out of 25 books. And I have upped that on Storygraph as well as Goodreads. On Goodreads, my goal is 100. On Storygraph, it's 75. I think I'm going to hit 75 more comfortably than I will 100. But if it hit 75, that would be quite insane because that would be like my highest point. And 32 about halfway through a year isn't very bad. It's not a bad thing. I had a rough start to the year, but as you will see, my, reading definitely was a little all over the place. I wasn't as picky this year with my books, which is why I think my reading suffered a little bit. But anyways, moving on. So 32 out of 25 books read, meaning I have surpassed my initial reading goal, and my initial reading goal kind of is set at 25 in my head, so to speak, but my goal is to get much higher than that, although I don't put too much pressure on myself because I find that I'm not getting paid for this. There's no value from this except maybe that I suffer and my reading suffers if I push myself too hard, meaning that I will pick up books that I otherwise would not if I didn't have this pressure. Anyway, that's a whole ramble. So the number of arcs I read was big fat 0. I did not get to any arcs, unfortunately, this time around. So, but hopefully quarter 3 and 4, hopefully I pull through and I get to that 80% on that galley. Because there are some, anticipated releases that I really want to get to later on this year. And if I want a chance to get the arc, I gotta boost up my NetGalley ratio. And if you don't know what arcs are, they're advanced reader copies. And if you don't know what NetGalley is, it is a website where book influencers and reviewers like me can apply to review books, to read and review books. And they're usually the sort of finished copy. So they might have some errors, some dialogue might be changed, some lines may be changed. But the overall manuscript is more or less a pre-finished copy. So it's like the last point before you get to the published copy. I've had some fantastic arc reads over the years. I read an arc of The Will of the Many. I read a lot of arcs over the years. Will of the Many is the one that comes into mind first and foremost. Breath of the Dragon is one I also read. Another one I read is The Last Contract of Isako by Fonda Lee. Funny enough, it's two by Fonda Lee, but although I read Breath of the Dragon last year, whereas I read Last Contract of Isako this year. Although Breath of the Dragon was published this year in January, I believe, and the book came out in May. But anyways, so unfortunately, number of arcs read 0, which means that my arc percentage is at 45-ish%. And for Unread Archives, which again is a series of vlogs that I started last year to catch up on my reading goal, I didn't get to my reading goal, but that's okay, not the end of the world. It just forced me to read a little more, and it also taught me how to make better vlogs. I think I'm still a little shaky on the vlogs, but I think I'm getting there. As long as I have like a set plan, which sometimes is a little difficult because I sometimes get carried away and I ramble. But that's what the long form videos are for. So for Unread Archives, I wrote that I read 10, but realistically, out of my bookshelves, I read like 2, like books that I own. For the Musaeum Society Book Club picks, I run a book club. We have 3 lists. We have a fiction list as well as a classic list. So there's a fiction book and a classic book every month. And then we have a nonfiction list. And for that, I only read one of the fiction picks, and we will talk about that. I'm trying to remember which one it was. Oh no, I do know which one it was. Fortunately, that was a dud, but okay. And I have not done any audiobooks, unfortunately. And the average time for me to finish, and this is taken from Storygraph, is 2 days. And the next bit is also taken from Storygraph, and I'd highly recommend getting on Storygraph. So as far as page number goes, 300 and under, I read 2 books, which is 12%. 300 to 499, I read 14 books, which is 82%. And 500 plus, I read 1 book, which is 6%. And all 17 books that I read in the months of April, May, and June were fiction. Granted, I did start The Persians, or rather restarted it, and I didn't get super far, granted, but I got to like chapter 2. I think it's chapter 2. I just don't remember where exactly I got. Okay, I read this. So I got to roughly page 60, which isn't bad, and I think it is the second chapter, actually. Yeah, so it's chapter 2, and I started annotating it, and I'm not really counting it, but I'm hoping to get through this. And the nonfiction aspect of the Musaeum Society Book Club will be changed for next year. So stay tuned for that. I think I'm just going to do 1 nonfiction every 3 months. So 1 per quarter. That way it's not as intimidating. So I'll have to find more nonfiction books that are interesting. Anyways, let's get into the actual books that I read in each month. This is roughly in the order that I read them. Yeah, it is in the order that I read them. So in April, I read 9 books. I read Daughter of Crows by Mark Lawrence, My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney, Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney, Upgrade and Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, The Duchess Deal and Any Duchess Will Do by Tessa Dare, and the Avatar, The Last Airbender comics, or graphic novels, The Promise Part 1 and Part 2. So those are really fun because it adds a little more context to like post TV show, which is really nice. And it was just nice to be back in this world after understanding the atrocity that is the live action. But we're not going to go there. We will not go there. Okay. Next, we have in May, I read 5 books, which isn't terrible, but I could have done better. All the books that I read in May had I think, higher overall rating than all the books combined in April. April was a dud. April was such a dud. Oh my god. Let me see. Hold on a second. I can actually tell you what the average rating for April was and what the average rating for May was. So the average rating for April was a 3.94. That's probably the lowest I've had in a month so far. And then the point for May was, the average rating is 4.85. That's almost a whole point above. That's almost a whole star, like, above. And I had nothing below 4.5, which is crazy. Like, that's crazy. Anyways, rant aside. May, I read The League of Gentlewomen Witches by India Holton. I read Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. I read First Time Caller by B.K. Borison, This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me by Lona Andrews, and Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. And then in June, I read only 3 books. This is what I mean by my reading very much varies. In June, I read Red City by Marie Lu, Sabriel by Garth Nix, and The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. So, overall, a solid quarter. I think I did better this quarter around than I did last quarter, if I remember correctly. But, oh well. Actually, I can see. So, I have the plus thing on like Storygraph, and I can actually compare like stats custom. So, let's do. So we can do January to March 31st for one of them. And then we can do April to June 30th. And then we're going to hit compare. So in the first quarter, I read 15 books. And in the second quarter, I read 17. So definitely a slightly higher jump. And my average rating for quarter 1 was a 4.88. And my average rating for quarter 2 was a 4.38. But we're going to get into that sort of aspect of it a little more. This is actually a good idea for a post, but anyways. So format, now it's like the graph time aspect, kind of. I do little graphs, which I think are fun. So for format, I have digital, print, and combo. So combo means like print and digital, or print and audiobook, or digital and audiobook, or I don't know, all 3 for some reason. So digital, I read 13, meaning I read 13 books on my Kindle or other digital devices, usually my Kindle. 1 I read in print, and 1 was sort of a combo. So the combo was, I believe, Anne of Green Gables, where I read this both as a physical, because I have a physical copy right here, and I read this sort of like as a physical, and then I kind of switched to an ebook because it was easier. And I cried, and I also have a vlog. I cried. I was actually sobbing at like a bus stop. Anyways, at the train station while waiting for my Uber home. It was like 11:30, but anyways. And then for the print, I read League of Gentlewomen Witches because I have a physical copy. So that was a fun one. As for the gender of authors by books, 10 books were written by women and 8 were by men, which isn't terrible, but I did have, I think, more women last quarter than I did men, which is, I gotta remedy that. This is too close. Graph time. So 11 were on Kindle, 2 I owned physically, and 4 were from Libby. And I cannot tell you off the top of my head which ones were what. Adult versus YA, I had 1 middle grade, doi. I had 3 YA and 13 adults. I just like these because it kind of shows what I tend to lean towards, because I still, again, do read YA from time to time, and I do, dabble in middle grade, so to speak. Oh, speaking of, this can be added to my 5 middle grade books this year. That was one of my, like, challenges that I set for me, like a goal that I set at the beginning of the year. So, okay. Anyways. And I still lean more towards adult, obviously. Adult books and stuff, and books in that sort of age range, so to speak, but I do dabble in the younger stuff. So, because it's fun to see how it changed from when I was a child, when I was the intended audience, to like now. Because some of the like YA books, I think I would have loved to have them when I was younger. I feel like I would have definitely benefited from the storyline or the representation or the conflicts that some of the books had, or just like the fun aspects of it. But yeah. Next, we have genres, and this is according to Storygraph, so it's not going to equal 17 specifically. It's not going to equal 17 exactly because there's a lot of overlap. So something might be in fantasy, it might also be in romance, it might also be in historical, that kind of thing. So we've got 9 fantasy, 2 contemporary, 1 young adult, 2 science fiction, 5 romance, 3 historical, 3 manga, 1 classic, 2 mystery, 1 crime, 4 thriller, 3 middle grade, and 2 graphic novels. And it said that there's no queer books, but in The Tainted Cup, one of the characters is queer, but I guess that doesn't count enough as queer. Like, it's not really front and center, but anyways. And then standalone versus series, again, this is sort of just like to see what I sort of gravitate towards depending on the time of the year. And I read 4 standalones and 13 books were part of series. So yeah. And then we've got average ratings. And as I said, my average rating for the 3 months was a 4.38, which is not super high, but not super low either. So again, that is lower than last quarter's, which is weird to think about. Anyways, so I had 1 2-star, 1 3-star, 1 3.5 star, 1 3.75 star. We had 3 4.5 stars, 5 4.75 stars, and 5 5 stars. So definitely a huge mix of things, which is not the end of the world, but it's really weird. It was a really weird set of months, I think. And then quarter 2 hopefuls read. If you don't know, I said a sort of quarterly hopefuls TBR kind of situation. I do have a video on that as well. And for this quarter, I actually read 4 books, and I think I had like 25 books, which is actually a step up from last quarter, which I think I read 2 books, I think. But for the quarter 2 hopefuls read, it was Daughter of Crows, Upgrade, This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me, and Anne of Green Gables. So, very cool. Here are some YouTube videos you should check out. I have my mid-year book freakout tag. I have an unread archives vlog, which is volume 8, where I read First Time Caller, I believe. I have a cozy reading vlog where I saw, once again, to this book. And I have a work with me. It was nice outside. I wanted to get off my phone. I wanted to lock in and do some things. So you see me typing on my fancy schmancy MacBook. So yeah. And then as for the quarter 3 hopefuls, I'm going to speedrun this because this video is already long enough. But again, quarter 3 hopefuls, the hopefuls kind of thing is just like a general TBR for the next 3 months. And a lot of these, there are a couple of repeats just because those are general yearly goals, I guess. And a lot of these you will see in, I guess, future videos and stuff. And there's a couple of like repeats in the sense that you might have watched another one of my videos and I mentioned the books and I mentioned them here because the first sort of row of books, I guess, are my book club picks. So yeah, and there's just like, in general, a couple of repeats. So we have, as far as book club stuff goes, Year of the Mer by L.D. Lewis, Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, Rusalka by C.J. Cherryh, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne, The Republic of Memory by Mahmoud El-Said, Russian Magic Tales from Pushkin to Platona by, I think it's translated by Robert Chandler, translated and edited by Robert and Elizabeth Chandler, I think. The Amazons by Adrienne Mayer, Seven Wonders of the Ancient World by Bethany Hughes, The Science of Middle Earth by edited by Roland Loic Mangin and Jean-Sébastien Steyer. Then we have Fellowship of the Ring in Russian. We have Le Comte de Monte Cristo in French. Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. Gin Pot of Shantiport by Simon Tapasu, The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez, The Galban Emperor by Catherine Addison, Farah Noorzad, and The Ring of Fate by Diba Zargarpur, Sibel's Secret by Juliette Marillier, The Silverblood Promise by James Logan, A Memory Called Empire by Arcady Martin, The Jessed Heir by Sarah Hashem, The Whale Rider by Whittier Mera, I hope I said that correctly, Inanna by Emily H. Wilson, Glorious Exploits by Ferdia Lenin, A Song of Legends Lost by M.H. Ainde, I hope I said that right, Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie, Godkiller by Hannah Kaner, There Is No Anti-Medics Division, The Will of the Many by James Islington, and Now Back to You by B.K. Borson. Although I might switch that to like a quarter 4 thing, but quarter 3 also kind of includes like fall-ish. But anyways, Talking Classics by Mary Beard, Descent of the Crane by Joan He, Night Watch by Terry Pratchett, Ruska by Edward Rutherford, and A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. So there's that. That's that. I will have a quarter 3 hopeful specific video for you, obviously, at some point. And so if you want to check out the other videos, I will link them down below. Let me know your sort of quarterly wrap-up kind of thing, how many books you read in June, how many books you read overall, that kind of thing, your favorites, your least favorites, what your average rating is. I'd love to chat with you in the comments about it. And as usual, I will see you in the next one. Thank you for sticking around. Follow me on all my socials. Check the links down below. Follow me on my Instagram and especially my Substack. I'm trying to grow it. If you want long-form written content, I think that's sort of where I thrive more than, I guess, video making. Although I think I thrive here too quite a bit. But yeah, and anyways, I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe in this heat. Stay safe in the cold wherever you are. You might be in the northern hemisphere, you might be in the southern hemisphere. The heat is actually insane. It's a little cooler today, which is why I'm wearing like a sweater. But yeah, I got a wicked sunburn the other day. I did put on sunscreen, clearly not enough. I'm like rotating in the shower. I'm like rotating like a rotisserie chicken. You know, like I just rotate because it hurts so much. Washing my hair is gonna be a challenge. Might as well just like take a pair of scissors and just cut it. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know all your thoughts down below. Like, comment, subscribe, maybe stick around. I have so many more videos where this one came from, and I will see you in the next one. And as always, happy reading.